Since you're talking about Baker, I'm gonna talk about Baker.
Wow, you're gonna switch it up.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about Baker too, but for a different reason, because I'm gonna focus on my Super Bowl pick Texans. And I'm going to look at those Bucks and say, man, get the Buck out of here.
Okay, I don't know if that's
Get the Buck out of here. Swap them with the
Christina?
No,
Who's helping?
that was me.
That was Dusty.
Look, let me tell you
I know
something.
it was Dusty because
Someone's gonna have a meeting
got
about
some
What, they're the Bucks.
Yeah,
profane
I get it.
bars
Yeah.
today.
Look,
Trust
when
me.
you look at the Texans, and I get it, it hasn't been sexy. Offensively, you question CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is he what you got on him? Is he a force multiplier? Well, you know what? He's been having to do a lot, and he has been on his back a lot. However, offense struggling, still finding ways to win. You know what other team offense struggling, still find ways to win? And we say, man, they just know how to win. Those Kansas City Chiefs. You know what they lean on? Their defense. That's what this team does.
What's the Texans record?
I'm just comparing that right now.
Got it.
It's not record, but this is the Bucks, and this is the Texans defensively. Because again, we're looking at the Texans. We know their offense is struggling a little bit, but let's look at their defense, which they struggled last year in the postseason. But boy, look at the Bucks and look at the Texans. 9th overall in points per game. Look at the differential here, and we got the Bucks above this Texans team at 9-5, 4th in points total yards per game. Sacks, they're second. They give up a lot of sacks. They're second in giving up sacks, but they also get sacks, second in takeaways. This defense is the reason why, yes, I'm going to say it, they do still have a chance to win the Super Bowl. They're not fully asleep. They are in the postseason.
I like it,
They've
Greg.
won that division, have that locked up.
And it's falling apart.
Because I'm a little flustered right now, but this is my team right here. Get them up, man. Show them some respect. They're basically doing the same thing that the Baltimore Ravens are doing, sitting at 9-5.
Wow. I mean, I'm mad at that.
Well, I mean, I get the Ravens.
They have 3 losses against 3 spectacular teams.
Well, yeah, the types of teams you're gonna have to beat come the postseason. And here's the thing,
They're all in the NFC though, so we had to worry about them in the Super Bowl. Like I said.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I said. Yeah.
The Texans, I don't think with the level CJ's playing and with the shambles the offensive line has been in, have been the team any of us thought they would be this year. Now, they have been good enough to win that division, but I thought this past week was more about Miami just really playing poorly offensively.
Good defensive, good catch.
Can I ask a question? Would you say, would CJ being in this second year and them winning still these games where it's like, man, I don't know how they're winning
Back-to-back division champions.
Like, is that not impressive? I mean, Mahomes is doing it at a better clip because he's an older guy, veteran guy. The team-wise, they're not as young. But this is a young team. This is a team that's newly kind of put together.
Listen,
I'm just saying.
Is
it not impressive?
No, it is.
No,
it
I
is
think so.
impressive. I think that most of us believed, and I still believe, that for the Texans to be a true contender, it was going to have to be on the back of CJ not only doing what he did as a rookie, but improving.
Yep.
And because he hasn't, and I don't think all of a sudden it's coming, I just don't look at them as a true contender. And as far as their direct comp with Tampa Bay, I think Tampa Bay is more likely to upset someone. I don't even know if it would be an upset, but to win their 4-5 round 1 playoff game than Houston is in the AFC. Houston in the AFC probably playing Baltimore or Pittsburgh in that game.
Upset.
I don't like that for either one of them. Go ahead.
All right. I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are. This is definitely one of the other videos that I really like to just talk directly, to the fans and especially the Texans fans. What are your thoughts on this team right now? Because I'm one of the people going into the season that was very high on the Texans and said, hey, the main objective is AFC Championship game, right? That is like the floor of what you're looking to get to. You don't have to win the AFC Championship game. You don't have to get to the Super. You don't have to win to the Super. Obviously, you want to, and that is the ultimate objective. But to me, it was that was the floor of what, if you're a fan watching this team, as long as they at least get to the AFC Championship game, you could feel all right, that was a great year. We're going in the right direction. This is awesome. We're right here. We really turned this franchise around. And now, obviously, the way how the season has unfolded, it feels like that objective is a lot harder to achieve. This team is obviously flawed, but I think that there's still a lot to like about it, and they have been finding ways to win, which I think is impressive. But when you look at a team like the Baltimore Ravens, to use that as an example, like Greg is doing, they have moments, especially offensively, that is like through the roof spectacular. I think actually technically the Ravens have the number one ranked offense, technically, at least statistically. And so you can see the just avalanche of offensive production from a team from like Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Flowers, likely, Mark Andrews. Like you can see that. I don't necessarily see that from the Texans. They have won these more ugly, more gritty, grinded out games, which in a lot of ways bodes really well come time playoffs, because you're not expecting to have this avalanche type of games. We don't really see that often in the playoffs. Now with the seating, especially in the AFC, it's actually a little all over the place in terms of like, are you playing indoors, outdoors, weather? We know obviously Kansas City and Buffalo can always have bad weather. Pittsburgh can have bad weather. Again, at the very least, it's going to be cold. I'm trying to think off the top of my head of some of these other spots that they might be going up against. So that'll be interesting to see how some of that ages and how some of that unfolds. Are they going to be on the road? If so, where and when? So it is a fascinating prospect for the Texans and kind of what the expectations are of this team. I think this is one of the hardest teams to evaluate because of how their season unfolded, because of the injuries, because it's CJ Stroud's second season. You have a young offensive coordinator who I think has struggled to be able to deal with these injuries. You have Nico back, and now you have the run game going as well, which again, in the beginning of the season, you either didn't have the run game, but then you had your wide receivers, but then the wide receivers went down when you got the run game back, and then it was also like, well, you still have Nico, but then Nico went down, or it was the other way around where you didn't have Nico, but then Diggs went down. Like it was like, it was this kind of progressive thing where, again, it was like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 1 step forward, 1 step forward, 3 steps back. Like it was just been a very hard season to evaluate because this team has been so different week to week to week. And it just becomes hard. I struggle to evaluate under those circumstances. And I'm not going to just make it up just for the sake of making it up. That's just not my style. And that's why I'm really genuinely curious, like, for the true Houston Texans fans, like, what are you expecting? Are you like, yeah, you know what? I was really expecting this team to get to the AFC Championship game or even get to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. It doesn't feel like it's going to be that way. I'd be happy with just winning a playoff game. Or are you like, no way, man. Yeah, this was a tough season. It's not how we expected it to be, but we're still 9-5. We're going to finish the season with 11 wins, 12 wins, whatever. And here we go. We're starting to peak at the right time. Like, I'm just curious where majority of Texans fans' mindset are at. I've been checking in with them, honestly, weekly, because this season for them has just been so, again, just so difficult to get the pulse of them. It really is. You can look at some of these other teams that have also dealt with injuries, whether it be the Eagles, whether it even be the Vikings or the Packers. Like, there was still, those teams still have enough moments where you can really see some dominance, some like really, really high level play. And of course, now those teams are for the most part pretty much healthy, and so now they're playing at a significantly higher level, and you can just really see it connect. I have not really fully seen this team connect just yet. But again, it is a fair point that Greg Jennings brings up where he referenced the Chiefs. The Chiefs are obviously unique because they are great. They win these close games, but they do so because they minimize their own mistakes. So yeah, they don't have the ability right now to be able to really pull away and slap around the other team. But it really is kind of like, well, we're just going to let the other teams kind of lose while we win, right? We're going to let them beat themselves. Whereas the way how all these close games have been with the Texans, it hasn't necessarily been, we're just going to take advantage of the other team beating themselves. It's more kind of like we're both kind of just playing ugly, gritty ball. And yeah, we come out on top, which is great, but it's just a different reason why. And that's why, like, a game like, if you are going to play the Chiefs in the playoffs, like, that style of play most likely won't be enough. Will it be enough against a team like the Bills? Will it be enough against the Broncos, the Ravens, like any of these other teams? Like, definitely possible. Definitely possible, but you're not going to feel great about it going into it, into the playoffs, you know, into these games. So I still do think that there's a few weeks left for them to kind of maybe get some momentum going. Like Nick's kind of just being like, well, I think, you know, this is what it is. I don't necessarily agree with that because, again, this team, the way how it's constructed right now, has only played so many games together. After this team has only played so many games together as constructed after shaking off the rust of being early on in the season and then having to come back with the injuries, now reshaking off that rust from the injuries and just kind of having to like retrust your body and kind of test the limits and all of that. And now we have some time going forward. It's very possible because we saw this with the Green Bay Packers. They had a very similar thing, albeit in different directions and with different players, but it was kind of the same thing. When you have injuries kind of going all over the place and bringing this player back, but then losing that player, now bringing that player back, adding that player back, like you're disconnected. You're out of rhythm with everyone else. And so it does take a second because you're like, immediately you're like, well, hey, everyone's back now. Why aren't we playing good? And it's like, well, because you have this guy who's only played 2 games this season. This guy hasn't played a game since week 4. Like it just takes a second to kind of get everyone back together. The Rams, perfect example of this. It took them a second to refine their footing, even when Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp came back. As soon as those players came back, they were like, great, they're back. It's week 9 now. We're ready to ball out. No, it took them to play a couple games to kind of get reintegrated, to get resituated. The Rams are probably the better example than the Packers. So that's kind of what you're looking for the Texans. And if you saw the Rams be able to do it, I'm just not going to all of a sudden count out CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans just because we have preconceived notions as to like what the ceiling is. Like Nick definitely wants CJ Stroud not to be a top quarterback. Like he doesn't want it to be a thing. We know that. We know that. It's not like he's anti CJ Stroud by no stretch of imagination. He's not a hater or anything like that, but like he does not want that. That's why he kept clowning him for the whole, one-on-one talk with Caleb Williams and whatnot. Like he does not. That's why he even had in this thing where he said, will the real franchise, quarterback stand up? But he's questioning CJ Stroud's ability to even be a franchise quarterback, which I just don't think that's really fair. And he has not earned, he does not deserve that lack of trust in him. I understand he hasn't earned the trust of us to be like, this guy's a 15-year starter to be who's going to be a top 5 quarterback year after year after year. He hasn't earned that either, but he has still shown us enough for us to give him the benefit of the doubt, considering the circumstances that have been dealt. And quite frankly, I think he's done a pretty decent job, managing it. Again, it's far from an ideal situation, but I think he's done a pretty good job. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Houston Texans? Do you think they should be higher? Are you so confident in their playoff hopes? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and I'd absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.